Welcome to Fresh Off the Boat, Ed Brand's podcast, where I interview our past students and their friends who are in different colleges or even pursuing their master's or PhD programs. Today, I'm delighted to be with Keshav Vasudev, a student I've known for over 5 years now, I think. So, Keshav, why don't you introduce yourself and we'll take it from there?
Hi, I'm Keshav. I am a current PhD student at MIT doing my PhD in nuclear science and engineering. I worked with Arjun when I was in high school, and Arjun helped me sort of decide what streams to pick and helped me build the building blocks of my application for college. He's instrumental in helping me get into Georgia Tech, where I did my undergrad in mechanical engineering, worked for a few years, and now I'm doing my graduate degree.
Very often, students explore majors with us, and engineering is a very common major, like most of the families in South Asia, Asia, you would know, are interested in STEM degrees. However, when we break down things like mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, chemical engineering, systems engineering, computer science and engineering, so there are so many options available, and students at the high school level may not be really clear about what a major entails and what the nuances are between the different types of engineering. So let's dive deeper into understanding mechanical engineering. Was that a path that you had chosen? What was your preparation in high school, which eventually helped you in sort of making that decision to declare a major in mechanical engineering? And going forward, what are the different sort of electives or interesting projects or resources you used at Georgia Tech to sort of get where you are today?
Hmm. So my sort of journey with mechanical engineering started very early. Started in seventh grade when I was introduced to physics. In India, India, I guess, rest of the world also, you get introduced to physics through the lens of classical physics. So Newton's laws, forces, momentum, etc. And I fortunately had a very good teacher, and that helped me learn the subject and build an interest early on the subject. So it it started from there. I already had an affinity for physics. I was good in math. I enjoyed doing math, and that wasn't it. I think there's many paths you can take from just liking physics and math. But for me, I really loved cars. I loved everything that was about cars. I used to like reading about cars. Uh, I did an internship very early uh, at Maruti, and I was just like, I want to work in cars, and I want to make cars cleaner, more energy efficient, more affordable, and that was that was what I thought I wanted to do in my professional career.
In short, you wanted to be Elon Musk. I mean, but
As
not
a
expensive cars,
Yeah,
but do
yeah,
all the other stuff that you just
as
mentioned.
a high school student, I guess, yeah, you could say middle school, high school student, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Um, so then, this idea of building cars cleaner, more efficient, more affordable opened opened me to the landscape of clean energy, and one of the things that stood out to me was nuclear energy. So this is around the time when I started thinking, okay, what am I going to do after high school? What college am I going to go to? What degree am I going to do? And two of the sort of competing fields in my mind were mechanical engineering and nuclear engineering. Mechanical stemming from my love for classical physics, math, and cars, and nuclear energy from my desire to work in clean energy efficiency. Um, so my thought process at the time was that I was so early in my career that going down the path of nuclear engineering at that time would put me in this little niche, little corner. And before I'd really explored a professional field, I'd sort of commit myself to it. So in a way, committing to mechanical engineering allowed me the opportunity to not really commit to a field, but commit myself more to a skill set that I could then apply to a field as my interest matured. So I did that. I was fortunate enough to get into Georgia Tech. So I thought it was a good engineering school. I went there. Um, as soon as I got to Georgia Tech, I declared my major mechanical engineering, and I started working with High Tech Racing, which was it was a student-run club where we designed, manufactured an electric race car, and then went to national competitions and raced them. Um, and I loved that. I thought it was a great opportunity to work outside the class and pick up hands-on skills. And that was one of the things that I wanted to do, and one of the reasons I decided to go outside India for college, because I thought that I'd get the opportunity to put a greater emphasis on um, skills outside the classroom. So I really enjoyed that. Um, that gave me a lot of knowledge, was instrumental in helping me get my first internships. And as I was going through college,
Mhm.
this is the time when COVID was in the middle of college, so there was college stopped. That was a big disruption. I went and did an internship at an automotive manufacturer in the US, and while I was there, I started reading up articles about clean energy. What's the future of clean energy? What does that look like? Where are we going to be 20 years from now? Solar, wind is great, but is there something on the horizon? And I came across Commonwealth Fusion Systems, which is a nuclear energy startup, but crucially not nuclear fission. They work in nuclear fusion, uh, energy concept, which is great. It's what powers the universe, but it's not something that we on Earth have been able to harness yet.
What prepared you to sort of think about nuclear energy, and then also describe like what is the difference between fusion, fission, and what
Okay,
are the challenges for fusion, and how close are we to see a breakthrough for common applications of nuclear fusion?
got it. What prepared me to think about nuclear energy, to think about fusion? Really, nothing. I think it was just reading articles. At that time, watching things on YouTube, but also going a step past that and reading scientific papers. So yeah, just acquiring the knowledge, using the skills I learned in class, which I think people think about college as just a means to build a set of hard skills, but it's not just that. It's also a great tool to build soft skills. One of which is the ability to think critically and to ask questions. So when I was reading videos, or when I was watching videos, reading articles, I I try to ask, what, like, is this feasible? Could this happen? Can I help it in any way? And doing that over many months, maybe a few years, gives you the tools to start to understand what's happening. And for me, it sort of coalesced into when I found CFS. So now answering the other part of your question, what is nuclear fission? What is nuclear fusion? So the sort of the building blocks of our universe is the atom. And the atom can be divided into three parts: the proton, neutron, and the electron. The proton and the neutron together form what's called the nucleus. It's electrically positively charged. So you're removing or adding the electrons, which aren't part of the nucleus. So in fission, what you do is you take a nucleus, a big, heavy nucleus, and you break it up and you turn it into something that's smaller. And in doing so, you release huge amounts of energy. Again, millions of electron volts. Fusion is the exact opposite. So you take two lighter nuclei to squish them together. And in doing that, also you release huge amounts of energy. Into the last part of your question, and the most exciting is when will this happen? At the risk of not having a lawsuit, I'd say uh, it's not 30 years away, which is sort of the joke in this industry that fusion is already always 30 years away. I'd say it's between 10 to 20 years away. We will have prototypes that work, but these prototypes will not power our homes and offices. That is something that will come in uh, another 10 to 20 years, I hope.
So, what's day job of a PhD scholar at the Commonwealth Fusion Systems? And you also have classes, I'm assuming. So it's kind of
Yeah,
a master's plus PhD. So how does one like navigate
yeah.
a day of a student doing that?
So just a little bit of a correction. I'm not at Commonwealth Fusion Systems. That was a startup out that I'm
Yeah,
working at MIT now. Um,
yeah,
so you can think of a PhD student's life in sort of two phases. There's what's the first around 2 years, um, which is where you're a master student but also PhD student. So you're taking classes like you rightly pointed out. We're also doing research. At the end of the 2 years, you have to pass these exams called qualifying exams, where at MIT in my department, there are two parts to it. One of which is based on the classes you take. So you need to demonstrate academic knowledge. And the second is a research part where you have to demonstrate research relevant knowledge that I have done research. I know what I'm doing. This is what I propose to do for the next 3 4 years, which is the duration of the remaining duration of my PhD. And I know how to do it. So the first 2 years, you have to strike a very fine balance between committing time to classes and committing time to research. Um, Day would look like, depending on the class schedule, about 3 to 4 hours of classes, uh, some time dedicated to homework, the rest of the time dedicated to research. Um, I like growing up, I played sports, so being active was a big part of my life, and I try to do that. So I try to work out or play tennis whenever I can. So that is another inclusion. But most of the day is split between classes and research.
very often students, even at the high school level, wish to do academic research which is beyond their school curriculum. So there are several opportunities for them to sort of do that, but there's no sort of one path that works for every student. And depending on the field of interest, they need to identify mentors or even network and connect with research scholars in the field to understand the scope of what is the new knowledge people are working on and thinking, and how they can upskill themselves and learn the basic tools and building blocks for even getting to that level before they actually think of doing research. However, there are different resources they can use. There's Google Scholar. There's even third-party organizations which do a fine job in matching students with research scholars. What was your path like while in high school? I know you were in the IB system, so that kind of prepares you a little bit an introduction to research. But when you think of what high school level research is versus on the ground, what is the difference?
So I was actually in ICSC,
Okay,
so
yeah,
I had
right.
no real preparation for
Okay,
research per se. But again, it comes down to, as someone who came from ICSE, it like research is just asking questions. In ICSE, they teach you, you go into such great depth in. I took science, so I can vouch and say in math, physics, chemistry, you explore great depths, probably even greater than some of my classes in college went into. Now it's up to you to decide what to do with that depth of knowledge. Like what do you do? Like you know so many formulas, but start thinking about where the limits are for those formulas. If you read about, say, Elon Musk, like Tesla launches a new car with, and they quote a battery range. You've taken in traditional Indian curriculum, you take an entire year of E&M physics. Think about, can like what would it take for a battery to power that? Are they just adding more cells, or are they making their cells more efficient? And if you start to think like that, that's really what's the most important to be able to do good research. The hard skills, the doing experiments, that is stuff you can learn when you join a lab fairly easily. But It's just asking questions that's important, and that needs to be innate. As far as resources go, uh, I didn't. Uh, my focus in high school wasn't really on research. Uh, in fact, even my first few years of college, when I was working at the with the electric car club, my focus was not research. I wanted to do things uh, with the greater industry application, or I'll correct myself, with the shorter scale industry application. So I can design something today and it can hit the production line 2 years later, 3 years later. In research, you're doing things on a more fundamental level, so it takes about 10 years, 15 years maybe for it to actually, for what you do to actually be in the hands of people. So I m- for me, what really helped me and the sort of tools that I used were, I used LinkedIn a lot. I I messaged people all the time. I tried to reach out to as many people as I could, and I didn't write. Um, I didn't have, I did not use a template. I curated my messages. I'd read people's research papers, and I'd ask questions about the research paper. So in research, what people really like is to know that you know what they do. So this is something that gets people excited. So if you can show them that you know what they do, that's already a foot in the door to a conversation. And once you have a foot in the door, people in academia love to talk about what they're doing, and they're very open to helping. I had many people who helped me get where I am today, and it started with a very simple, either cold email or a cold LinkedIn message, introducing myself and saying that, can you help me do this? This is my past experience, and this is why I think you'd be the right person to help me. Many people don't reply, but often some people do, and that's what's really helpful.
So that's a really a good power tip for anyone, even a high school student. Not that they might get responses from professors they care for, but really this the way you described the step-by-step sort of approach and have a clear call to action sounds like a strike rate could be a lot higher than just randomly pasting a template message.
So um, when I was in high school, I, at least to my knowledge, there weren't big tie-ups between research heavy institutions and research heavy labs in high schools. But in my time through college and what I'm seeing at my university right now, I think there's a bigger push to onboard high school students into research. So in fact, in my lab, we have a high school student that's going to be working with us this summer. Uh, it's not for pay, it's just purely to build knowledge, get experience, get an introduction into the field. And I think like a lot of this comes from the realization that, you know 10 years back, 20 years back, your knowledge was your your ability to acquire knowledge is very linear. You go from class 9, 10, 11, 12, and you acquire knowledge at a set rate, which is defined by your school system. But now, because like technology has touched everyone, there's you have more freedom over what knowledge you acquire and how you acquire and when you acquire. So I think research institutions are waking up to this idea that high school students could have skills that can be useful to us, and if we get them interested early and excited early about what we're doing, that's potentially more people you could add to academia. And I think for high school students, it's a valuable opportunity to build skills, to put something on a resume. Yeah.
So high school students should have passion projects which they can demonstrate. Very often students wish to use their summers in the sophomore year or rising senior year. One way to do it is to do research, and that's something very specific to their interest or field. The opportunities to do networking online require a certain nuance. What about the rest of the application process for a master's or a PhD? do you think that first part was really important, like just forming connections with professors, which is meaningful, genuine, and then engage with them, and then make them kind of your mentors and well wishers when you apply and need references?
So, good question. Um, I I started making connections before I finished my undergraduate degree. So I already had that foot in the door before I graduated and before I'd even applied. And I thought I had a solid application. I applied and I got rejected the first time. And I was like, what happened? And what I did at that point was reach out to the professors again, try to understand what I could do to help my application and communicated to them that, my interest like still persists and I will apply again. I took their advice, which was some some specific things about research, and I did that. I applied again and I got in. So that's just to demonstrate that getting your foot in the door isn't the whole thing. That's it's only a part of the process, and it's about how you use that. Obviously, after that, you need to have a good application. You need to demonstrate interest in the field and knowledge in your field. How you do that? Well, for me, it was the two parts to it. I did undergraduate research. So after my time with high tech racing, I spent time in a research lab at Georgia Tech. I did whatever I could. I wrote an undergraduate thesis, although that was not required for my department. And so I tried to put myself in a position where I'd go a little bit beyond what was required. And then when I went to Commonwealth Fusion Systems, I I got an opportunity to work on a project that I thought was really cool, which aligned with my skill sets from mechanical engineering and sort of served as the bridge between my undergraduate degree and applied nuclear science. And I use that to demonstrate to this department my second application that, hey, now I know what I'm doing better, and will I be a good fit? And I guess it worked out well.
Now let's switch a little bit about costs of education and how one can get a fantastic education and somehow find avenues to get funding even after you've gone to college without financial aid or merit scholarships. These could be extra toppings or maybe academic travel or research grants or things like that. And of course, at the PhD and a master's level, most likely yours is a funded program, right? So how does that work like that? Or is it more like a master's, you pay for a bit and you don't pay tuition, but maybe pay, of course, for
No,
housing?
for me, it's my tuition's paid for and I get a stipend. Housing is
Mhm.
not paid for. I have to pay for that.
Yes.
But yeah, I think undergraduate degree, I came with no funding.
Mhm.
Um,
Did-
for
But did you
me,
notice? But did you notice how maybe other students could get additional grants for research or even do some academic travel or go for conferences which were paid for, sort of make
yeah,
their
for
whole
sure.
experience a lot more richer, but without spending more money?
Yeah, I think once you're at college in the US, there's a huge amount of money that supports research. So I went for a few conferences in my undergrad, though those were paid for and they're good places to network. Um, with high tech, I also went for student competitions. Those were also paid for. So and I think these things really do add to the overall student experience. And if you're coming to the US, you're not just coming to sit in class and learn from professor. That's something you could do over Zoom, as COVID showed us. You're coming here for the bigger experience, and that's learning outside the classroom.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, I was just saying. Other than that, uh, yeah, college is expensive, and when you come here as an undergraduate student, I think you should come here with that understanding that whoever's paying for you is paying a good amount of money, and it's on you to use those 4 years in the best way possible.
So, we'll end with some rapid fire questions. And
Sure.
these could be pretty random, huh? So be ready for it. A
Okay.
few could be about college life and university life, and in your case, being at very high pressure institutions like Georgia Tech and now at MIT.
Mhm.
What is, how do you put yourself to sleep? There's so much stimulus.
I'm so tired. I just go to sleep.
Okay. So, what's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Drink coffee.
Okay. And then, what do you prefer, dogs or cats?
I have a dog, so I'd say dog.
Okay. And what's the last book you read?
Last book I read, oh wow, it's Radiation Damage of Materials by Gary Voss.
Okay. What's your dream job?
To build a fusion power plant in India. It's not a job, it's the dream.
If you could have a superpower not related to building this fusion power plant, what would that be?
To fly.
Pizza or burger?
Pizza.
If you could have dinner with any celebrity, who would it be?
Any celebrity. That's a that's a tough one.
Okay,
Okay,
cool.
I'm just gonna say, top of my head, World Cup's coming up. Virat Kohli.
Cool. All right. So that's pretty much it. I wanted to just wrap it up with some fun. So thank you so
Yeah,
much, and really look forward to meeting you more often. And there's that old episode which you still have to do, which is dissecting your Georgia Tech application. It might be a bit
yeah.
embarrassing going back to it, but we'll do it.
I think it'll be fun.
All right. Cheers then.
Yeah, good talking to you.